Welcome back to another segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons, as I take up more of your questions in another segment of Ask Judy. I had a lovely message from Eric Patterson, who was just saying how much you enjoy the show and that you would love to have an autographed photo of the original immediate cast that is still living. Sometimes when we have an opportunity and a number of us are together, we'll maybe have some group photos that we'll all sign, and we'll try to get as many of the cast as we can to sign them, opportunity permitting. And then typically Eric Scott has been the one to then advertise that on his Facebook page when we have some of those that are available for purchase. I don't know that we have any right now. I know we're also working on, I think, some sort of like store, like a Godsey store kind of situation exists or is going to exist. And that's, I think, where they're going to be marketing, also making available the cookbook when it's done. Cammie and her daughter were heading up a lot of that. And some of you have heard that Cammie's husband, Kim, had a bit of a health scare and was in the hospital. So that has delayed various different things. Cammie's talked about how the ornaments that she makes were delayed because of that. And I stopped asking about the cookbook because while they're dealing with, family stuff like that, it seemed like finishing up the cookbook was not high on the priority list. So we'll let you know as soon as that is available. And if I find that these photos are going to be available again with a number of the cast having signed them, I will be sure and let you know. And also wanted to just shout out thank you and to the Patterson family and happy holidays. I have a question here from Singbike, who said, I was watching some of the Waltons reunion movies and a couple of things struck me. Number one, it was interesting how much the Walton kids' lives ultimately differed from John and Olivia's. They generally seem more unsettled and seem to have more marital family issues. It just seemed a stark contrast. There is somewhat of a feeling of loss and sadness in the later episodes, like the characters are all sort of living in the past of their early days and just want to return to them. I was wondering if you knew if these choices were done for a particular reason or unintentionally, and your thoughts on this as playing one of the characters. What an interesting observation, and I can understand why you would ask this question or make that observation. I think some of the things were really driven by characters and casting and availability of actors and actors that had moved on or various different things like that. So all of a sudden, you might have a situation where someone had gone on to another show, or maybe they couldn't come to a contract agreement, or they felt that whatever that actor's pay rate would be was more than they felt fit in the budget with what they were trying to do. And there may have been other issues that I just wasn't aware of as to why they might not have wanted to ask a particular actor back. I think that was far less common because typically with the casting, the people that we worked with were just lovely, and I wasn't specifically aware of any circumstances where it was sort of, we don't like the actor. I know there was a situation with Tom Bauer where he asked for, in his own words, a small pay raise, and then they decided to have Kurt get killed at Pearl Harbor. And when they wanted Kurt to come back in that very odd episode where we find out he's not dead, and they went back to him, and he said once again he asked for that very small pay raise, and they didn't even get back to him. They just cast a different actor. So that's cases of things being very budget driven, and I didn't see the budget. I didn't know what kind of allowance they had for actors and where all that came into place. So that is beyond me. As to why, maybe they just story-wise felt that those things created conflict in a way that they thought was easier to construct than allowing for a situation that caused conflict. I mean, of course, we always had conflict between certain characters, like Ben and John were always kind of hitting up against each other. But that wasn't so much a family. It was kind of a family thing between John and Ben, but it wasn't a marital thing or whatever. And of course, every married couple, even on the show, Esther and Zeb, had times where they had marital difficulties. John and Olivia were in conflict at times. Certainly Mary Ellen and Kurt had their moments. Ben and Cindy had some moments. But I don't know whether it was just a case of the show had run long enough that they were searching for stories, or maybe it was an easy path that somehow just didn't resonate with the audience in the same way. So I wish I had a better answer, but it's unfortunate that it kind of ended up being that way, particularly in later reunion movies. This question is from Christine Sontag, who said, "I find it interesting, informative, and entertaining, my channel. Thank you so much. I have some questions. Recently, I came across an episode of Password Plus, which you were on. It was a Halloween episode. I believe the actor was on for a week. When you filmed those episodes, did you film them in all in one day?" Yes, we did. We'd be called in for whether it was a half a day, maybe the afternoon, because we didn't really stop and start when we were filming. We'd take breaks when there was going to be commercials inserted, but they were very brief, and then we would continue on. And then in between episodes of the filming, so we'd complete a whole episode, and then the guests and even the players, if they were going to be back for another day, we would go change our clothes. So then it looked like it was the next day, and then we'd shoot the next episode, and it would go like that for the entire 5 episodes. So I have a feeling you're asking me that next. Were they scripted at all in what you were going to say? No, not at all. The host probably had introductory information about us as actors, the celebrity guests, and also probably for the people who were coming in to play the game. They would have certain information for them. So those might have been on cue cards or something like that. And perhaps the host, I don't remember if he had those cards and read them, or whether they were on visible cue cards by the camera. So that went like that. Otherwise, the rest of it was just, we played the game and we ad-libbed. Did they contact your agent if they wanted you to appear, or you directly? I had a press agent who was the one who arranged all of the sort of personal appearances and anything like game shows or things like Circus of the Stars or Battle of the Network Stars. They were aware of all those sorts of things that were sort of casting celebrity performers to be part of, and they would pitch me for things, or they would then, when people knew who some of their clients were, they would come to certain press agents and would know their roster and ask for people. Like when I had done Password, they might come back and ask for me again. I don't know. But I would get the call from my press agent saying, "You've been asked to do Password Plus again," which was probably my favorite game show. I did a lot of game shows, but that was my favorite, only because I felt I did the best at it. Some were much harder. I liked $25,000 Pyramid. I thought the end game was harder to navigate. And then there were some that I, just thought were tougher. I did Crosswits. I did a show called Chain Reaction. So I could think usually in terms of games and puzzles and stuff. So the one I was horrible at that I wasn't able to practice or was one up in Canada that was about puns, and I'm horrible at puns. So that one I really, really didn't do well at all. I wasn't invited back, go figure. And then if you filmed in one day and if you have to change your wardrobe after each show ended, yes, any info you could give me would be appreciated. So great. I hope that answered your questions. This question is from Mary K. Bettina, who said, "I just recently watched The Sermon. What a beautiful episode. Here's my question. The Baldwin sisters are in it and are seen in the congregation. I watched a different episode recently where Elizabeth asked them something to the effect of why they didn't attend church. They replied that they do, the Episcopal Church. I'm sorry, I can't remember that episode, just a discrepancy that I would not have previously noted before I tuned into your stellar behind the scenes explanations and commentary. Well, glad these have been helpful. I believe in the homecoming, they may have made some reference to what church they went to. And I think some of it was we never showed other congregations. We didn't show the Episcopal Church or a Protestant church, or so I think if they wanted to gather all the characters together that were prominent in an episode, it made the most sense for them to all attend the same church. So we sort of went with, well, perhaps there wasn't an available Episcopal church. Maybe it was too far away. And so perhaps they attended our church because they wanted to go to services and they didn't have another option. I'm not sure what the reason was for that, but I know it would have been story driven. And so it probably was just somebody didn't know, oh, well, at some point they said they went to a different church, so that may have been forgotten. And then it was just sort of left to be a non-issue. But perhaps at some point, rather than having to have them visible every time we had a Sunday church, if they said they went to a different church, then they didn't have to bring them in just to be in a church scene and pay them for that. So again, lots of things were budget driven. Thank you for joining me for this segment of Ask Judy. If you are enjoying these segments, please do hit like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you. I will be back with more behind the scenes of the Waltons and more of your questions in another Ask Judy. Thanks for watching.